What's up, guys? We're back with another episode of the Self-Made Podcast. And today we have our special guest, Dr. Cory Buckner. He is a development coach, and he's going to drop some nuggets on us about some mindset and share his journey with us, too. So I'm super happy to have you. Thanks, Cory.
Hey, Sean, man, I'm thrilled to be here. It's an honor. We've been talking about this for a while, so anytime we get to connect and kind of share what we have with people that may be able to benefit from it is it's part of our journey, it's part of our giving. So I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, man, I'm excited for what you got to share. So tell us a little about your story, a little bit about your background and kind of how you got to where you are today.
Okay, great. Thanks. So as you mentioned, my name is Cory Buckner, Dr. Cory Buckner. I come from an athletic background, right? And so grew up in a household where my father played ball, and I watched him utilize the game of sport to basically advance in his social and economic mobility, right? And so I didn't know at the time that our career paths would somewhat intertwine. I just knew that I had a model. I knew that I saw how one could use their platform and turn it into their purpose. So it's funny how you don't really know that the dots are going to connect only when you look back. And so I'm going throughout my life, and my dad's giving me all this type of advice. All the while, I'm not, as a kid, you know how it is. You're just like, yeah, you're not really taking it to heart. But what I didn't realize was my gift and my privilege. I didn't realize that these nuggets that were being dropped on me daily were seeds that were being planted. And as we both
so
know,
everyone knows, your dad ended up playing in the NBA, right?
Correct. Played in the NBA.
High level, of accomplishment, right, in the sports world, and obviously he's giving you some big nuggets every day and some knowledge, right, dropping that on you.
Exactly. So when we're talking about like high performance, and as you said earlier, I'm a personal development coach, and so understanding like high performance, and when I say it's a blessing, I was blessed to have my father. Like you said, he's one of, I want to say, 3 individuals that have won a high school championship, college, Olympic gold medal, and an NBA ring. And so
you gotta share with them who your pops is, man. We got to give him some love.
Got to show love to my pops, Quinn Buckner.
Buckner, man. Quinn Buckner.
And he's aside from all of his accolades as a professional, one of his greatest achievements, and he'll tell you, is being a world-class dad. And that's really what I've had been fortunate enough to see him be able to do what he did as an athlete, but then take those skills and apply it to life. He's led teams to these championships. And so it really was understanding what leadership looks like. And one of the things he's taught me is that leadership is serving. It's putting others before yourself. So when I talk about my journey, I didn't realize how intertwined that was with me. I just heard these nuggets. I go to college, didn't really have an idea of what I wanted to do yet, but I did realize, quick story, I'm getting advised by our athletic advisor. My dad is, he at the end of the day, he asked me how my day went. I end up telling him that it was a great day. Stopped by my academic advisor. She gave me my classes, did this, da. And my dad was like, wait, back up. She gave you your classes. And I'm like, yeah, like she just gave me this list of classes. And he was like, well, what are you in? And I told him at the time, I'm 18 years old. I'm like, I don't know. But
you probably got the easy classes, man. Our first semester is always the easiest.
You already know. And so little did I know, like he's literally teaching me how to fish in that moment. And he was like, how do you not know the classes that you were about to enroll in? And then he said, let me ask you a question, son. Whose education is this? I mean, he's hitting me with the real. Yeah. And I'm like, it's mine. And he was like, you're not acting like it. That was the beginning of, as we talk about, the mindset. It was ownership, agency, believing in like you will get out of life what you perceive to be real. I hadn't owned it yet. So I started taking it seriously and didn't realize how I was giving all my boys advice who were on the basketball team, football team, and they were coming to me, and I was like a mentor to my boys. Little did I know that would take me into my future career. I was doing what I was doing long before I was doing it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
And there's a book that I love. It's called Ikigai. It's the Japanese word for reason for being. One of my favorite books. And when you understand what your reason for being is, you are motivated to become the next best version of yourself so you can serve at the highest level. So when I realized I was actually good at doing this, I became more cognizant of working at it. And so I go through, I go through college, then I go get my master's degree, jump into my field, working in athletics. I work on the academic side as like an academic coach for our student athletes. Did that at Tennessee State University, loved it. Then moved on to the University of Louisville, working with Charlie Strong and his football staff. And then I moved on to USC, where I started off as a men's basketball counselor, and then I've transitioned to a learning specialist now as an assistant director, overseeing the support for all the support that we provide for our student athletes. And like I said, didn't realize how everything was about empowering, about serving, about motivating, inspiring. And so I did it within that realm. And then over the last couple of years, decided to venture off into my own and become a personal development coach.
Nice. And then you're getting your doctorate too, right, at USC?
Yes, sir. Finished in 2017. I got my doctorate in educational administration with a concentration in leadership. And the funny thing about that, had you would have asked me that at 18, 19 years old, I'd have been like, get out of here. Like, but that is the power of trusting the process and trusting the journey.
Yeah. At what point did you figure that out, that you're like, you know what, I want to do this, or like pursue it? Because I mean, a lot of us, we get our bachelor's. I mean, I have my bachelor's, right? But I didn't even think of, should I go after the master's and then let alone go for the doctorate, after that?
That's a really good question, man, because I think you can apply. The way I look at it is I decided that I had a really, really great mentor in undergrad. His name Dr. Sean Harper, who's now at USC with me now. He runs his own research center at USC and is a professor. Has been my mentor since almost 16 years. One of my greatest friends too. He saw something in me that I didn't see. And, I had my dad on that side, but from an academic standpoint, here was someone that actually took the time to tell me, hey, you're not reaching your potential, but actually then take me by the hand and say, but here are the keys to the car, rules to the game. And so I didn't know. And so, but when I found out that, like, okay, there was an area that I was really good at. And then I said, okay, I want to spend my career in higher education. And so one of the things I said, any career that I went into, I wanted to have the highest of the highest in that field, because then there are people that cannot tell me no. Yeah. And I want to, more importantly, inspire those that didn't think they could do it. So it didn't really have a lot to do with me wanting to go back to school. It was going back to, how do I grow more so that I can serve more? And if this is what is needed to serve at the highest level, then give me one of those.
You were just determined, no matter what. You want to get to the top.
I saw it in my mind. I mean, my mentor said it when I was maybe 21, 22, and I heard him, but it's a difference between hearing somebody and listening to them. I wasn't ready when I was younger, but it always resonated. Once again, planting of the seeds, right? There was a seed planted, and that exposure, it really opens up your mind to new things. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it. If I do it, I'm going to wait until I'm ready to do it. And all those first couple of years of working, I wanted to work. I wanted to enjoy my 20s. And then one time, I came out to SC and something hit me probably 3 years in. And it was just like, I'm giving so much, but what about me? I'm giving so much to my student athletes, and I'm pouring out. And this is a big thing I think I want the listeners to hear is, you got to pour in. Yeah. I realize that, like, people don't believe what you say. They believe you believe what you say. Yeah. And I wasn't actually doing all the things that I was giving out. And I said, no, okay, let me go inwards and go down so that I can go up. Kind of like the bow and arrow effect, right?
Bow and arrow. Why do you think sometimes maybe, we don't necessarily believe in ourselves? What do you think is holding us back?
It's a great question. I think a lot of it is past childhood trauma. I think it's encouragement, limited encouragement. I think it's fear. I think we've been, through a lot of, the reality is we've been programmed. A great book I would recommend is The Four Agreements. It was really a transformational book. And it talks about how we've all been domesticated, similar to animals, but not in that same process. But from the moment we were born, we were given information about who we were before we could decide who we were, right?
Yeah.
And so depending on your school teachers, depending on your friends, depending on your high school counselor, or even in the religious system, I mean, so many other of these avenues, you've been planted on, don't do that, or this isn't good, or, stay safe. These things have been hardwired in your brain. And those are these beliefs. And repetition is the answer to the mastery, right? So you keep telling someone that, it becomes their reality. And so you don't know. And that's why I talk about be clear on your beliefs and values, because that's either going to take you to the greatest version of you or be the barrier to who you were born to be.
Do you think, you've been around some high profile athletes, and especially, USC is a, phenomenal school for athletics and academics. Were you running into like the same thing with guys at that level? Like, are they mentally, maybe not, 100% believing in themselves? Are they, have all the same limiting beliefs?
100%. And I'm going to tell you why. The reality is in self-efficacy, which is the belief in the ability, not the actual ability, but it's the belief in the ability. And the research shows that comes from encouragement. It comes from past experiences. It comes from, this environment. So wherever you got the encouragement, that's where the preparation, the confidence, and the efficacy lies. And so we're talking about high profile student athletes, even on the NBA level. That efficacy from an early age, from the moment they showed a certain level of athletic prowess, they were viewed as a transaction or a ticket, and they were encouraged in that area. But what happened is the other area wasn't built up. And so the life skills, this personal constitution, the educational attainment, becoming self-mastery, that was forgotten about. And so you get people at this level who they just haven't tapped into it yet. And so it's important to realize, that we put stereotypes on them, but I would challenge anyone, if you put, let's say, remember Juju Smith-Schuster, if you put Juju Smith on the 10-yard line with one of your high-profile students who got in, with the scholarship and academic scholarship, put them on the 10-yard line, see who wins the race. It's the same. It's the same mindset. Juju's going to win it because he's been prepared for that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's in the preparation where the confidence stems from. And so they haven't been prepared as much, or the encouragement, they haven't realized that they can do the same thing if they took the same skills that they took to become high profile athletes, transition that to being a winner in the game of life as well.
What about like the non-athlete? What are maybe some things that people could work on? Because, a lot of our listeners, they're in the real estate field. They might be, either a realtor or loan officer, and, maybe they don't have an athletic background, but what are some of the things that maybe they can maybe reflect on or think about that can try to get them over whatever's holding them back?
I think that's an important question. I think that oftentimes,
just an internal thing they need to think about, or is that like reading books, listening to podcasts, or maybe surrounding themselves with better people, or how does that work?
I'm looking for a quote that I want to read to you, and this is kind of will jump it off. And then I found it. The quote that I wrote, it says, "The championships in your life have already been decided on by the conditioning of your mind. Your championships are not ahead of you; they're inside of you." So let me break this down. Oftentimes we look in the outer world for things that can only be changed in the inner world. So when you ask something about what can listeners be doing, they can. I mean, this quarantine time is a great time for reflection. I think one of the terms we keep hearing throughout this whole pandemic is who's an essential worker and who's a non-essential worker, right?
Yep.
I think if you get smart about this, you will look at your life and say, what is essential and what is non-essential? If we can use this to start looking at, like, what are my priorities, and i.e. my values, not the things that I was taught to believe, but what are my highest priorities, and are these reflected in my daily rituals? Because what happens is people don't realize that their values and their beliefs are the drivers to everything that they do. And if you're not clear on that, you're pursuing things that are conflicting. And you may value success. That could be a value, right? But the belief is, I'm not good enough. And you're not clear on that. And so there, you see how those two are conflicting? Because you're actually, because you don't believe you're good enough, you actually are scared to fail, which is a deterrent to your success. So
But do you think that sometimes when people say like I'm driven or I'm motivated by success, do you think that's just like a surface thing where like, you know, the whole like entrepreneurship and all that,
yeah,
it's like really popular or like self-development, right? Obviously there's some popularity with that, but do you think that's kind of like a bullshit answer? Like, oh, I want to be successful, but yet like there's so many more layers under that lies up to it.
100%. Because here's the thing. I think we, especially when you get into business. I'm reading the book now, and if people want to pick it up, it's called Drive by Daniel Pink, and it talks. It really breaks down motivation at its finest and what drives us to do the things that we do. And there is you have an extrinsic motivation and you have intrinsic motivation. In the field of business, there's been plenty of research that will prove this. They use extrinsic motivation to motivate people to succeed. But the research will tell you that optimal performance for the long haul is intrinsic motivation, and that is learning for the sake of learning. That is connecting to what you enjoy. We forgot that, and so when we're going in this model, even for entrepreneurs, I want to make a bunch of money. At
Yeah.
what cost? Are you? And it's a quote that I live by. If you want to live a life of fulfillment, are you are you reaching your goals, or are you living your values? Very big difference. Because a lot of times when we say we want to make a lot of money, that's just one thing. But like, what are you sacrificing in the meantime? Is it your family relationship? Is it your wife? Is it your kids? You got to be clear on what is my why. So going back to it is a surface answer. I want to be successful. But my follow-up question, if I was coaching you, I would say, define what success looks like for you. This is the goal behind the goal. What are the feelings that you're after? Let's not even talk about the money. Let's not talk about the title. What are you looking for? What are you after? And then who do you need to become to get what you're after? And I think we skip that step. We're just
Yeah.
looking for the means goal, when really you should be looking for the end goal.
Right.
And let me break this down more. Like when you're talking about a means goal, like we were told, get good grades so that you can go to college. If you go to college, then you'll get a good job. If
Yep.
you get a good job, you can get married. And you see how it's like it's never
And you
ending.
buy a house and you start a family and yeah.
And so I would challenge listeners to see it from the end. What am I after in the end goal? What are the experiences that I'm after? And I think we forget about this, the 12 areas, the 12 balances of life, right? And so you have your love relationships, you have your friendships, you have career, your skills, adventures. There are all these different areas of life that if we're not balanced, we feel off. And one of the three things that people are really after: purpose, fulfillment, and balance. And when we're not clear on that, you're always searching, you're running, you're in a hurry for something because you're not looking at what it is that I'm really after. And this is a great time during the quarantine to really take a step back and reflect on. It's like that self-inventory. And the question that I like and I use for myself: the results that have gotten me to this point in my life, am I satisfied with those?
Yeah. So
And
let me
that's a
ask you though, on the balance thing, right? Because I think, I mean, I know I'm guilty of this, you know, where I just go like all in. You know,
yeah.
I mean, I've had arguments with my girlfriend, you know, about, hey, she's like, oh, you work too much, or you know, not all the time, but you know, sometimes she kind of gets in that mood. But I'm just like, I don't want to hear it. Like, I'm focused right now. Like, I don't need you complaining. I don't need you telling me I'm working too much because I need to like figure out this system. Or, you know, if you get in a groove at work, you're just putting in those hours, right? So is is there a balance there between like work and like your life?
100%. I was just talking to a friend of mine, a great friend, who we were kind of like talking about these type of things earlier, just kind of bouncing ideas off. And one of the things that we were talking about is you need to make sure you're taking care of your world before you can take care of the world. Because if not, you've become an imposter. And one of the things that we don't realize is it's about alignment. And alignment is am I living my values, right? So the person that I see in my head, the person that I want to be, and are my thoughts, behaviors, and action all congruent? And so if you're saying that the family is important to me, but yet you're not, making that time for it, Yeah, you're making it in the business, but there's something inside that still feels off. It's because there's a great book I would recommend it as well. It's called Leadership and Self-Deception. And there's this self-betrayal process that happens when you stop living the person who you see yourself as. So going back to it's important to get clear on that, because now, like, you create the balance, and you will become, like I said, going back to how do you define success? Because you may be able to, if you're saying that success is being able to provide all these things for my family that they don't even want, there still is, they want you.
Yeah.
And so now
So
there's
do you
still
think it's something that you kind of have to work on, like with maybe your closest people in your family, and kind of figure out what is it that they want too?
1,000%, because there's as someone who I view myself as a leader, but I've learned that you cannot lead anyone if you don't love them. You don't learn how to love them until you listen to them. Our job, is to listen to their needs, listen to the whispers before they become cries and yells. And so you ask the questions, and that will give you the ammunition and the needs. And that's where you lead, is because you now are meeting the needs. You are adding value to the lives of those who most impact you. You're becoming the best version of you to give them the best. Because if not, like I said, go ahead, you better say something.
No, that's crazy, because it's like, obviously I have my daughter, and it's always like, oh, I want to like do all these things for her. And I'm sure a lot of people probably struggle with this, where it's like we work a lot because we want to provide for them, but then you sacrifice not maybe spending as much time with them because you're, not really chasing the dollar, but you're going after your career at that time too. So, I mean, I know I'm guilty of that.
Well, you know what's funny, Sean? We're all guilty of it, and that's the thing. I'm really big on giving ourselves grace and being compassionate with ourselves, because none of us are perfect. These are like, if you know how, like, on the job we do these performance evaluations, right? You do it on a quarterly basis, and then you have your annual review. At some point, you realize, I got to do that on my life. We are working harder on our jobs than we are ourselves, and that's why the balance is off. And those that perform at the highest level, they're not doing it once a year. They're doing this on a weekly basis, and some on a daily basis. And they're creating these clarity checkpoints of, did I do the things that did I honor my values in my actions this day? So when we're saying that our family is important to us, did I make those calls?
Yeah.
If I'm saying my friendships are important to me, did we get on a hangout? Did we get on a FaceTime? Because now that's what character turns into. Character is really living out your values and doing it day in and day out. And so when we're not, it's not a judgment of ourselves. It's an observation. It's an audit. And you don't, like, it's a stair on the stair. Like, say you fall down one stair. Most people want to go back down the stairs when you were headed up. When you realize you're not going where you're supposed to go, you get up and keep going.
Yeah.
You don't beat yourself up over it. You just, that's the power of awareness. Because when you're aware, when you're more aware, you can choose better.
Damn, man. What do you think? I mean, do you have maybe some questions that people can maybe think about that, maybe it's like you said, maybe it's a daily thing, maybe it's a weekly thing. What are some things that maybe we can reflect on?
I'm gonna pull this up, because I actually did a presentation, and I can send it to you as well. I did a presentation on aligning your values with your life in pursuit of fulfillment. And so, and part of that, I had some questions that I asked, like, my audience. And so remember I talked about the ikigai, right?
Mm-hmm.
The reason for being. And so there is this model that they have, and I'm going to read the questions that is the beginning for those that are really looking for something deeper than the means goal. And the first question is, what do you love? And the second is, what are you good at? The third, and we all love this, what can I be paid for? And then the last one is, what does the world need? But it's all starting with, what is it that, like, brings me alive? And it was Howard Thurman had a great quote. He said, don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive, and do that, because what the world needs is more people who have come alive. And so it's important to really tap back into that 6-year-old you. And for some people, they can't go all the way that far back, but there was a point in your journey when you felt good about the things that you do. And it might not even be in your career, but you got hobbies. We can have passion projects. Yep. Understanding the difference between your what I get paid for and what fulfills me. The goal is to merge the two. But if you can't, set aside some time to really dig deep into the things that energize you, because that's what connects you to your fulfillment. And so you asked about the questions. I've got a series of questions it's only like 4 questions that would be helpful.
Drop it on us, man.
So the first one is, what experiences do I want to have in this lifetime, and what meaning will it bring? These are questions that are connected to your end goals. And notice I said experiences. I'm not talking about the job. It might mean that you want freedom, whether it be financial freedom, whether it be emotional freedom. Get clear on that, because now you have clarity on what it is that you're really after. Because then the follow-up question is, how do I need to grow to have these experiences? And so you see it's taking you down this, okay, I want these experiences, but in the law of attraction, it says we do not get what we want, we get what we are. And so we've got to become that which we're after. So those talking about, I want this marriage, or I want this 6, 7, 9 figure salary, are you the person deserving of that? Yeah. Because it starts with our values and our beliefs. And if you don't even believe it, I'm telling you, brother,
you're just
not
talking shit.
You just talking shit. So then,
with that too, right? I think like what you're saying, I think a lot of people, especially in like the real estate field, I don't think they dive deep enough, with like their goals. Because I know for us, we've done business planning, and I try to get as detailed as possible. But I mean, I've seen some other plans with agents, and it's like, hey, I want to make 200,000 next year, and that's it. And it's like, okay, well, how many deals you're going to do? How many people you're going to talk to? How many open houses you're going to work? How many, how just keep pressing the issue to get as clear as possible. Because if not, like you're saying, right, you have to get as detailed and as clear to be able to understand your own value so that you can get to that goal. And especially if you've never made, let alone 100 grand, you're trying to make 200 grand. I mean, I've sat in meetings with guys that are like, we want to gross $1 million next year. And you didn't even break 150 last year. Like, how are you going to do that?
You bring up a really good point. And I think people don't realize that they're so concerned about the destination that they forgot about the process, falling in love with the process. And another book that I love, and I think you might have heard of it, but it starts with why. And that book is another one that I think people need to exactly. And there's so many other books.
Do you think they're afraid of all the details that go into getting there? Do you think they don't even want to think about all that to say like, oh shit, I got to work 6 days a week or, whatever it is, 12-hour days in order to get there? Do you think they just like want to tune that out and just like have that warm, fuzzy feeling of like, yeah, I want to make $250,000 next year?
I think that's the first part, but I think there's a second part to that. And they don't know why it's so important. They don't know why they don't know why things can never be the same to achieve things they've never had, right? It's like, if you want to live like the 1% live, correct? Then, and you're doing what the 99% are doing, there's once again a conflict and a disconnect in the value. So it's like, it's appealing, but that why isn't like, there isn't a fire inside that's burning. It's like, they say like you whatever you obsess over, you start to possess. Your obsessions become your possessions. This, whatever it is, whether it's being a world-class husband, whether it's being a world-class dad, you got to want that stuff, man. Yeah. Your dreams will not become a reality until it becomes an emergency. There are too many people living in apathy, right? This is like, oh, I want it. Okay, it sounds good. But want shows up in conversation. Expectation shows up in behavior. You got to change the mindset.
Yeah.
Like you show me what you do with your day and I'll show you what you're about. You have somebody that we're talking about in the quarantine, take some time to evaluate your day, because what you're doing, that'll show you what you're committed to. And it's not a judgment, but you can't manage what you don't measure. You got to measure this. You got to say, am I, these are the things that I say I want. Are my behaviors and my rituals reflecting what I'm after? And
but do you think sometimes we just don't want to be held accountable?
Oh, easy. Easy. Because now, like, if I don't tell you,
I give you the dream, and all right, cool. Let's call it a day, right? And hopefully that shit works out at the end of the year.
well, yeah, and because now, like you said, it sounds good, but there is no real one. There's no real reason. You really like your standards and your reasons are what get you to the results. Fuck the motivation. The motivation is fleeting. What are your reasons? You give me your reasons, and you'll see who's going to get it. If someone says, "I just want to make $200,000 and that's all," you ain't gonna make it. That ain't
Never gonna happen.
it's not deep enough. I
Yeah.
want a lifestyle that I never got, and I want to provide it for those that need the best of me. There is conviction. You get your convictions. You don't get the goal. The goal is like people they talk about goal setting as if that's the end all be all. It's really just only the beginning of the equation.
Yeah. Man, you are dropping some bombs right now, my man.
It's part of I appreciate it, man. It's part of the journey, man. When you get smart about this, you start like reflecting annually. I do an exercise every year during New Year's. A lot of people do resolutions, and I'm
Yep.
fine with that. I'm more of a reflector, and I do an assessment of 2019, 18, 17, a year in review, where I ask myself a series of deep questions about one, my year. Did I do what I said I was going to do? If I did not, why didn't I? What will be different in the upcoming year? And I'm really getting deep and getting transparent with me, so that the second part of my exercise is projection. And so you've got to be able to reflect and project, because that's the what manifestation is. You got to see it and step into it. But if you don't know, like, the things that stopped you from where you said you're going to go, you're going to continue to repeat those mistakes. And like you said earlier, this is work. We
Yeah.
work so hard on for others, but at what point do you change your world so that you can change others' worlds? We just have it backwards.
Yeah. Yeah. And you think that's just because the way we were raised? And I mean, obviously our parents only know so much, and that's probably what they passed on to us and through schooling and everything else, right? For the most
Well,
part.
yeah, that part, and going back to the two different types of motivations, like intrinsic and extrinsic. Our system has been set up on extrinsic motivation. You can go back to school, get the A on the test. Nobody was talking about the learning process, really. You were teaching to they were teaching to the test so that you can go to college, and the schools that got the best test scores got the most funding. So the teachers are now they're preparing students to do well on the test, but there's no real retention. It's like it's a depository education system where I'm depositing in you, but there's no real retention. There's no real like mastery. So we haven't been taught in that model. Even in college, a lot of times it's get the degree. So you're always focused on something, but no one's ever really in the moment. And the power really is in the present, right? So you've got in the past is where the regret lies, and in the future is where the stress and anxiety is. Most people are in both places, where you and I are right now. This is where the magic happens, and this is where the experiences happen. And when we get off, we'll be in our next now.
Yeah.
And when you're there, you realize you had a bunch of fucking awesome nows, and you experienced it. And so we're too busy looking that when when you look for something hard enough, you've overlooked it. Like that ingredient that your mom says, go find the salt or whatever. You're looking everywhere for the salt, and you realize it's right in front of your nose.
Yeah.
And that happens in our life, where we're saying, I want to be happy. I want to be successful. You're so busy searching for it that you forgot to just become it.
That's crazy. The real estate industry, it's a high turnover, sales field. And a lot of people, when we talk to them and try to coach them up, I think we get the same thing, hey, why'd you get into the business? And it's, I wanted to be my own boss, or I wanted to make more money. Or, I enjoy the process, or something like that, and I think the failure rate, I think it's like 80% or something super high, within the first like 2 years, and do you think that's just because they just don't know why they want to do it? Because it's a commission, right? If you're not closing deals, you're not getting paid.
So you bring up a really good point, right? So it's going back to like that, those value clarification, and I think it's Tony Robbins said it best. He was like, decision making is simply value clarification, and that's why you start getting clear on what you value. And a lot of times you think you value something, but your actions aren't necessarily backing that up. And so it's like you said, I want to be my own entrepreneur, but then there's, like you said, there's no real reason behind it, and it shows up in their preparation. So going back to that ikigai, right? And like, what am I good at? And because that's where mastery comes from. Mastery comes from this learning for learning's sake, not for the
Mhm.
reward. Like the reward is when you tie a reward into development, development drops. When you, I mean, and I'm telling you, this is what research shows. I mean, they've done Harvard's done studies on this where they've asked people to take blood, like give blood. Those there was one sample size they gave blood for free, and then the other sample they actually gave them money. And what was funny is the ones who were given money, they donated at a lesser rate than the ones who were asked to do it for free, because the ones who donated, who had to give money, they didn't think it was altruistic. Were the ones that did it for free, they were giving from, because they're giving people. And that's tying into this intrinsic motivation. And when those aren't intrinsically motivated, you don't want to prepare. The enjoyment comes in doing the things that give me energy. So when I say I want to be an entrepreneur, if you haven't fallen in love with the process, you're going to suck, because the process, the results are in the daily routines. And if you
Yeah.
haven't fallen in love with the routines, your results will be a reflection of what you did with your time. So when you're saying, I don't want to do the latest studying on what the stock market is doing, or
Or
in
make the
your
extra
field,
phone call, or stay in late at the office, or get up an hour earlier.
you do that time after time. That's just like somebody who wants to say, I want to be in the best shape of my life, and they keep eating like shit. And you
Yep.
do it day in and day out, and you start seeing the pounds pick up. It's the same thing in the industry, where your daily routines are reflection. I mean, your results are a reflection of the things that you did or did not do on a daily basis. And if you're not good at it, or you don't like it, there's no real motivation to do it if your why isn't big enough. And so what you'll see on the opposite side, when you enjoy something, you want to get better at it. And this
Yeah.
this this is twofold, right? When I get better at it, I want to do it more. And repetition is the ancestor to mastery. So you're doing it because you enjoy it, but you enjoy it because you're good at it. And it goes in this circle. So I think more times we gotta figure out what it is that we're supposed to be doing. And you figure that out by trying things out. So it's not
Yeah.
necessarily a fail. It's okay, I'm getting closer to where I'm supposed to be by learning where I'm not supposed to be.
Man,
And
I think that's so powerful, because I think a lot, like I said, a lot get into the business, and I think they might stumble across one, two, three, four deals their first year, might make 50, 60 grand in probably half the time they would have took them to really make that money at working for somebody. But they probably think it's too easy. And I think watching these $1 million listing shows on TV, everyone thinks, hey, you drive a Mercedes and you're showing $10 million homes every day and, making $300 a paycheck.
mhm,
Um, but they don't see the grind that goes into, getting up at 5 a.m. every day. Like you said, maybe
that
keeping
part.
up with the stock market, right? Or knowing your guidelines, maybe working on social media to be able to bring content to your following. So that way you can bring value to the real estate or the mortgage world.
To your point, I don't know, you familiar with ET, the hip hop.
Hip hop preacher.
Yeah, he has a great line that I live by. Say, everybody wants to be a beast until it's time to do what beasts do. And I think that's part of what we're talking about. Is it looks good, it's glamorous, and we're in this social media age where everyone wants to appear to be
Yep.
influential, but nobody wants to work at being a person who's worthy of influence, and or influencing those that matter, right? Like I'm becoming the person that's worthy of all the things that I'm after, and then that part is skipped. And so they don't realize, and so they're blaming on, okay, well, this is too hard. No, you didn't work hard enough. It got hard, you get harder. Going back to that mindset. But it only is tied to your reasons. It is your reasons that lead you to that which you're after.
So I've kind of struggled with that too. Like I myself, like, shit gets hard. Like, I just work harder. Yeah. I put my head down. I work harder. I probably attribute that to sports, playing my whole life. But
For sure. Yeah.
what about some people that it gets hard and then not necessarily fold, but they start hesitating. Like sometimes like I just can't connect with that because I'm just like stop crying. Like let's just keep going, right? Let's just keep going, get over it. But what about those guys that might struggle with that feel that shit hits the fan and now they're like really just got their head in a fog.
That's a great question, man, because we can tie this back to our very first thing that we said in the beginning was about the values and the beliefs, man, and we don't realize how much our limiting beliefs really impact the way that we go about life. There's one book that I read. It was called The Extraordinary Mind, and it talked about it used a great analogy of like there's on a tree you have on this branch a model of reality, and then on this branch you have a system for living, and they both are interconnected. And your model of reality are your beliefs, your values, and how you define yourself, right? And then your system for living are your choices, actions, rituals, behaviors. But these things are like directly correlated. And if you're not clear on your model of reality, it's impacting you and on how life is happening to you and not for you. If you don't realize that when shit hits the fan, I fold, that is a limiting belief. And because this is something that you've dealt with as you were a kid, a teacher told you weren't good enough and you believed it. You agreed to it, so it became your relative truth. And this over time becomes part of your virtual reality. And so it's helping people understand we've got to change your belief system. And just as they say, like a thought, like your words become, or your thoughts become your words. But I'm a big believer, and I do it the opposite. Your words become your thoughts. So when I say that, like what you say gives a brain a destination. So when I say I can't, or when I say like, I wasn't built for this, I'm giving myself an escape. It's an escape clause. I'm giving myself an out. And in my brain now, it's
oh yeah, cool. I knew this wasn't going to work out anyway.
Exactly. And so it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And you're like, when I talked about self-efficacy earlier, I said, it is the belief in the ability. And the second part to that is motivation is tied to the outcome expectation. So if I believe that I'm going to get this sale, then I am going to be motivated to do whatever it takes. But when I don't, it's because I don't believe that I can. So it's getting to the root of it and helping somebody work through that and changing the belief, because when the belief changes, the outcome changes, because now there's the motivation to do what it takes until you win. It's not, I hit a wall, I give up. That's when that's when your beliefs are put to the test. Yeah. You didn't believe it because now you've been tested and you've got to get stronger to what do I need to learn, or how do I need to grow so that I can break through?
Man, that is powerful stuff, man. Powerful stuff. So let's talk about let's switch gears here. Let's talk about your book. Can we talk about the book?
Yeah. No, I appreciate it, man. I decided when I finished my doctorate that I knew that I wanted to write a book, and I didn't know what I wanted to write it on. But once I finished up, I was just tired, and I just needed a break. Writing a dissertation it was scholarly work, so it was very rigorous, and so I took a break. It gave me some time to think about like what I wanted to write about. And I'm big on leading from your lane. It's something that I really believe in. It's like you find your lane, and that's your power place. And so I had to remind myself of that when I decided I wanted to write this book. And I realized that like I'm a very spiritual person. I'm not really religious, but very like connected to God, the divine, the one source. It's my part of my entire being. I'm a spiritual being. So I'm like, dang, okay, the soul, like I'm very soulful. And a lot of my coaching, I'm talking about people tapping into their inner light, to that voice inside that we all have. And so it just kind of evolved over like, okay, I want to talk about the soul, but then like, what is my power place? Well, working in athletics, coming from an athletic background, watching my dad win at every level, I've been coached up by what I believe to be my greatest coach. And I am a product of his guidance and his inspiration. So I decided I'm going to talk about life, but I'm going to use the game of sport to break down the game of life. So I ended up calling it Coaching from the Soul. And so I decided that, using this model of using the game of sport to break down the game of life, using it from the format of, I'm going to break this down into 4 quarters. And so I walk you through this process of the first quarter is player discovery, where we go through a series of questions that you got to ask yourself, in this pursuit of becoming the greatest version of you, because it's all like, this is a discovery process. It's an exploration process, right? And when you don't know where you're going, there are no real mechanisms for getting there. So you ask these questions of, like we said, I talked to you earlier about this, about, am I playing to lose or am I playing to win? Asking yourself that, tapping back into that core belief system. And we both know as athletes, it's a big difference, brother.
Oh, yeah. Do you think a lot of people play just not to lose?
100%. Because we talked about, earlier, there is this fear of failure that is embedded, right? It's, failure, it's rejection, it's, I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough. And if these were mental schemas that were like implanted in you from whether it be parenting or teachers or mentors, even, people don't know, like, a lot of projection happens, and people receive that projection when they don't know their own reality, if they haven't defined themselves yet. So people are literally are scared to lose. Well, no, they're scared to win because they don't know winning. You know what I mean? So you've got both sides of the fence, from that are fear of failure and fear of success, because both come with a lot, right? Because you talked about it earlier about this accountability piece. When you taste a little bit of success, now you got to keep doing it. You don't like rest on your laurels. You got to keep going. And that takes work. And I think some people know, consciously and unconsciously, they don't know why they want to work. And so they want a taste of it, but they don't want it bad enough. And going back to the reason why. The reasons aren't big enough. Success is a byproduct of the progress that you make. Those who are results get the results. They're connected to their reasons, which becomes their rituals. Those two things go hand in hand, right?
Yep.
And so, like, when you do it over and over again, your success happens. I think people are too connected to the destination or don't even know what it is because they haven't experienced it. And so it's scary, because what we don't know, fear is the unknown. But somebody once said that fear, if you did it as an acronym, false evidence appearing real.
Real, right? Yeah.
And so when half these things never happen, but we don't know that. And so we allow what we don't know to impact the infinite possibilities. And so it's like the definition of insanity. They always say, doing the same things, expecting different results, yada, yada, yada. But let me go back to the book real quick, just to break down the other 3 quarters I had. Were the second quarter was player development. And so now that we've walked through these questions, you're now figuring out the qualities needed to become the destiny version of you. And so I'm just breaking down various qualities. The third quarter, we're talking about player development and player mastery. And now that we know the skills needed, what are the routines? What are the habits? Like, really delving into your home court advantage. We talked about friends earlier. Who's your circle? Who are the people that you're situated around that have either been where you're trying to go, or who have the same mindset as you? Because if you're trying to be an eagle, hanging out with those, on the ground, we got a gap.
Yep.
And then the last quarter, I talk about player awareness, and I saved it for the end because they saved the best for last. And I believe that the awareness piece in us is what leads us to the best of us, because we can't modify what we don't know is an issue. You said you cannot manage what you haven't measured. So if you don't know where your opportunities for growth are, you're going to continue to repeat the past things that you've done, right? And so when you do that, you literally create a future just like the past. And so this awareness is a self-evaluation that we're doing on a daily basis. And I just kind of walk you through this journey. And this is mine. this is my gift to give away. I wanted this to be more, not a lot of scholarly stuff in there. I cite a couple of people, but from this, it's all about my journey and being able to give something away that I've worked very hard to become, and then kind of package it into where it could be an athlete who wants to read this. It could be a CEO who played Pee Wee ball. We've all played some level of sport, We
Yep.
understand the analogies, but really this is a book about becoming the best version of you and creating your own playbook and really creating this map, right? You know, if the best time, and I wrote this in the book, I said the best time to know your playbook is before you get into the game. Oftentimes we're waiting until those biggest games of our life, i.e. marriage, i.e. having a kid, i.e. that big promotion.
You
And
trying
we're
to
not,
call the audible?
we call it audible, man. When you were supposed to be ready for this.
Yeah.
And you get, at some point you get smart and you start getting ready. And that's where they say luck is where hard work meets preparation. You are preparing daily for life. And when those games come, oh, let's go. Because I've been ready for this.
Did you have yourself like any, I'm sure you had like roadblocks or hurdles that you had to get over either on your way to your doctorate or even, as you're writing this book? Because obviously those are two pretty big accomplishments that, not everyone can say that they could relate to that. But knowing you have all that knowledge and everything, what did you do? Maybe what was the roadblock and what did you do to kind of, get over that?
Well, you know what? I'll give you a quick story, like, because there were roadblocks there, but I tackled my roadblocks before these roadblocks came. And I say that because I went through a couple of things prior to me even getting my doctorate and writing this book, to where I had basically a play in my playbook that taught me how I'm going to face things when they get hard. And so I ran in 2007, I ran in the Mardi Gras Marathon. And I never ran a marathon in my life. And I don't even know what possessed me to do something like that. But I did it. It was 26 miles. So I did my training. I really broke down, like, if I'm going to do this, I got to prepare. And so I went through all of this. It was eating right, did the whole nine. So fast forward to the marathon, and I'm excited. I've been working at this, so I'm excited about it, but still never ran 26 miles at a hole. So I don't know what's going to happen. I get out of the gate excited. Like I cannot tell you how excited I was. I'm running fast. I mean, I'm sprinting.
Yeah.
And I realized, like, I'm gassed because I started off way too fast, right?
Yeah.
And so I slowed it down, and there comes like this fork in the road where it's like, if you want to run the full marathon, you go to the right. Half marathon, go to the left.
Yeah, so they give you an option.
They gave you an option, you know what I mean? And I signed up for the full marathon. And I'd be lying to you. I'd be lying to your viewers if I said I thought about that half marathon. I did. I said, if I just make this right here, nobody's gonna know.
Did you see a bunch of other people going the other way though?
Oh, for sure. But it was one of those things. Like, I have a constitution, a moral compass, right? And I knew that if I went that other route, I would be lying to myself. I could have told you I ran a full marathon, but when I go to bed at night, I would know that's not who you are. You lied,
Yeah.
And so I was committed. I told a lot of friends, Facebook, I told everyone I was going to do this. And so it actually made me rise to the occasion, really voicing out to others what I was going to do. So that's one thing I also would tell your listeners, is like, when you want to do something, tell other people, those in your circle, not your social media friends. Tell your real friends what you want to do, because those are the ones who are going to hold you accountable, not because they're checking you, but because they care about you.
Right.
And when they ask you, hey, how's that business deal going? It's because they want to know. If you're not doing it, that's on you, know, and hopefully if you're a person of integrity, that makes you rise, because you know that the people in your corner are holding you accountable for the things you said you were going to do.
Absolutely.
So going into this, I decided, okay, I'm gonna go right, and I'm gonna run this full marathon. And when I say I literally had to drag myself to the finish line, it was grueling. There was times when I wanted to quit. My feet were blistering up. It was hard, brother. But I said, I cannot quit, because I said I was going to finish, and I will not stop until I get to the finish line. And that was something I kept telling myself in my head, that finish line that I already set is when I stop, period. And so until I saw that last mile, and I tell you, when I saw 1 mile to the finish line, it was like I was going to the pearly gates, man. I literally was like, ah.
Yeah.
And I had this burst of energy, because it was like, I'm doing it. I did it.
You could see it.
You could see it. Finished it, man. And no better feeling in the world. And so I give you this story to share with you, where I learned in this one commitment. I learned emotional resilience, right? And resilience, when I say emotional, it's like I wanted to stop, but there was a reason inside of me that wouldn't let me stop. I didn't realize it at the time, but that's what I had. I knew that I wanted to quit and I was hurting, but
Yeah.
my mind took me further than my body took me, and I realized how strong this thing is. I just wouldn't quit. So I take that to give you this whole doctorate thing. That was the hardest thing I'd ever experienced, man. And it taught me, actually running a marathon, that our journey is a marathon, right? And if you put one foot in front of the other, you are going to get there eventually. And
Yeah.
so with the doctorate, I committed to it. The hardest part for me was actually applying. And because once I applied, ain't nothing stopping me, man. And it's because I said I'm going to do it. And I learned from that marathon, we do what we say we're going to do. There's something powerful in the feeling that I was after. I want that feeling in everything that I do now. I know that when I set out to do something, I
You're
know
not
what it feels, I know what it feels like not to commit. I've been on that side of the fence, and I hate that feeling. I know what it feels like to do what I said I was going to do. I love that feeling. And so when I now focus on the feelings that I'm after, and going into that doctorate, I knew that once I started, I already saw in my mind, I saw myself as Dr. Buckner. And so the rest of this to me, honestly, was a formality. I don't care what you throw in my way. Got it.
use or
Next,
knock it out regardless.
next, because
Yeah.
I had already saw myself there. So I had seen it in my mind and experienced it. I felt it. And so it really was my actual physical body catching up to what I already experienced in my mind already.
Do you think it's kind of similar to, like, those that play basketball, right? You hit a few shots, right? And then now it's like the rim just gets bigger and bigger and you just feel like you just can't miss. Do you think that when you set some of these goals out, and maybe as small or as big as they are, you start knocking them out, does that build like some kind of rhythm for you going forward, where now it's just like you said, like it doesn't matter what's in the way, you're just knocking it out and you just keep going, keep going, keep going.
Sean, you hit the nail on the head. Confidence comes from one, preparation, but two, results. When you one First of all, on the opposite side of it, when you set out to do something and you don't do it, I don't think people realize that your self-esteem literally begins to erode. You do not believe in your ability to produce. And that becomes a mindset, a belief system once again. And so you then, because you don't believe in it, you stop trying it, because nobody likes that. Like we're either running towards pleasure or running from pain. So if we know I don't want to feel the pain, I'm not going to do things that lead me towards pain. So
Yeah.
if I don't believe I can do it, I'm not going to try to do it, because I'm going to feel bad about it. That's the lack of confidence from not getting what you said you were going to do. But on the other side, like you said, when I see this, I set out to hit a goal, and I do the things necessary to meet my goal, not the world's goal, but my goal. I get it, and I realize my self-esteem rises, because there's power in your thoughts, words, and actions aligning. And over time, that becomes, like I said, the results are in the rituals. And my rituals are, I'm doing this day in and day out, because that's what's going to get me to losing the weight. That's what's going to get me to getting the degree, going to get me to being the best, real estate entrepreneur. I'm doing this daily. But when you've done it and you see the results, it's like a dopamine. You felt how good it felt. I
Yeah.
want more of that. And so I would challenge people to start thinking about the feelings that they're after versus the actual result, because we're really after the feeling. The result is a byproduct, but when you feel it, you want it, because we feel powerful when we know we can do what we said we were going to do. That there's no more powerful feeling than that.
Man, I'm super excited, man. This is good. I hope everyone's taking notes, because these are a ton of good facts and stories and questions that we can all think about going forward. I mean, we're still in this lockdown, so I mean, think about what Corey said. I think it's time to think about, reflect on what we can do during this time and how we can come out of this being better. I know some people are in worse off situations than others, but we still got to fight through this. Like you said, take one step at a time and focus on, on the big picture.
Yes, sir. Yes,
So
sir.
the book, when will the book possibly be out?
I'm looking at having this
How we
thing
can
done.
hold you to it.
I'm setting myself by the end of the summer. We should expect to have it out. So I'll post it up on my website, and would love for people to check it out. But really, like I said, this is my gift to those who just want to have a different perspective of becoming the greatest version of themselves.
And what's the website?
I'll shoot it to you on the when we get off. It's a coaching from the soul, but I'll give you the whole URL, and if you want to share it with anyone,
Okay,
that's
sweet. Yeah, we'll put that in the show notes, and people can find you on Facebook, Instagram.
If Instagram, I on Instagram, if you want to find me, it's at Dr. Cory Buckner, CoryBuckner. And yeah, I tell you what, Sean, this has been it's been quite the pleasure, man, to be able to connect with you and really just share insights and give the people something to think about during this quarantine and really becoming better. Because if we come out of this thing the same way that we went into this thing, then you really did yourself a disservice.
Yeah, you just wasted whatever 30, 40 days, however long it's been. I lost track already.
I'm telling you, man. So I would just challenge people to really dig deep. And here's one last thing I want to give you, man. People don't have to become a best-selling author during this time. You don't have to come up with the ultimate blueprint. Don't put that pressure on yourself. Do the work. Like Sean, you said it, one day at a time. Do something 1% better each day. You do that throughout the week. You win your day. You got seven wins in a week.
Yeah.
Do it again. And that's really real quick. Win your day. Break this thing down. People are trying to master their life. Just master the day.
Love it. Love it. Well, we'll get this thing wrapped up. Cory, I appreciate you, fam. I mean, you already know that. And
Yes,
hopefully everyone enjoyed this episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, also on our YouTube channel. And we'll be dropping some links from Cory in the show notes. So if you guys want to connect with him, please do. And once again, man, thanks for tuning in. Thanks, Cory.
Thank you so much. Peace and love.
Signing out.